Hi, Professor. Today, our team will be talking about the exercise 4 of visualization. Our team members are Deval, Neha, Roshna, RIYABEN, and Abraham. The exercise is related to visualization techniques using the tool Tableau. And now, Abraham will be talking more about the visualizations and techniques used.
Hello everyone, welcome to the presentation. For this dashboard, we have two datasets, CO2 emissions MTPC and CO2 emissions KT. So first, let's discuss the CO2 emission MTPC dataset. So this dataset is connected to Tableau using an Excel data source, and it was selected with the data interpreter and inbuilt function of Tableau to clean data and make sense of it. The data had initially some few header lines, and also the data interpreter deleted all those, and the years were in the raw data. As you see in the Excel, it was in different columns. So in the Tableau pivot function, using that was converted into wide to tall format, and we had few unwanted columns which are repeated information. Those columns were hidden. Yeah. And created a new column CO2 MTPC, and similarly exact step was for the other data set CO2 KT as well. So now we have two dataset, and both dataset have the same columns, country name, country code, year. So the data is linked via those. Now let's discuss the charts. First, we have created a scatter plot. For a scatter plot, we need two or more measures. So we have only two measures in our data, CO2 KT and CO2 MTPC. So we have added them to X and Y axis. Now it's plotting correspondingly. So in our data we have a lot of years and lot of countries, so it's overlapping. With geographical columns, Tableau automatically identifies them as geographical columns. So when we add country to the data, uh, Tableau automatically takes the latitude, longitude and plots them. So here for the symbol map, we have used the CO2 MTPC as a symbol or the size of the bar, and we are showing the value for each country. And in field map, similarly it's all the same way. So here the color of the entire country is based on the other metric we have, CO2 KT. For a stacked bar chart, we have used the progression of CO2 KT over the years for every country. So all the countries are stacked on top of each other, and so we can see the progression of how it's going over the years from 1960 to 2018. In a side-by-side graph, what we plot is for every year how different countries are performing against each other. So every year is one set, and every countries are the different bars in that section. In a dual line input also we need two measures. So we have CO2 MTPC and CO2 KT, and as the x-axis we have the year. So here we are comparing both different axes, and we just have to make sure both are on different scales. So it varies from 0 to 4.5, and CO2 KT changes from 0 million to 35 million. But since both have the zeros match, it's on a relative scale, so we can compare how the range is the slope of the graph. Those were the 6 basic charts created from the data. Now we will explain the updated dashboard we have created using these visualizations.
Hi everyone, I am ROSHNA BABu. I am here to present the second part of this exercise, that is to refocus on the dashboard which we have created on the part 1 and to tell a story with the data set based on the focus of our group. So, as already explained by Abraham, he has made six graphs which was told by the professor in 6 different works. As the first change, I have combined all those charts into 2 different dashboards. Like here we can see that dashboard 3 and the dashboard 1. The major focus of our group, or the major attention which we try to bring forward, is the emission of CO2 based on the countries and based on each year. So first of all, I have combined all the dashboards. In the first dashboard, I have added 3 charts and I have changed the headlines of each one based on the data which we have used. The first one, the heading should be our major focus, like the CO2 emissions based on the countries. And the first chart shows the symbol mark for CO2 KT. That means the kiloton emission of CO2 based on different countries. Like we can see all the countries marked here. Next one is a stacked bar for CO2 emission over years, and the next one is a scatter plot for CO2 KT and the CO2 MTPC, that is metric ton per capita. As country is our major focus, we have cleansed our dataset accordingly. Like in the country name, there are so much columns showing the information about the countries based on their income, such as countries with high income, countries with low income, middle income, intermediate. There are even some continents also. So we don't want such data. We just focus on the countries, the emission of CO2 based on the countries only, each country only. There are almost 260 countries altogether. We just cleansed based on the country itself, and we just made all these charts. So I have given a filter for all this graph based on the country. So here we can see thus in the symbol map we can see all the countries and their CO2 MTPC emissions, and here also we can see the stacked bar showing the CO2 emission for all the countries for each year, and the scatter plot also shows the comparison of CO2 KT and CO2 MTPC based on different countries. So if we want to see the emission of CO2 particularly for a country, we can add this filter. Like if we select China here, we can see that all the graphs are changed according to that filter. So this dot shows the emission of China, that is the CO2 MTPC of China is 166, and here this stat bar chart shows the emission of CO2 in different years. Like if we select 2006, the emission of CO2 KT, that is the kiloton of CO2 emission, is 64 lakhs in 2006 for the country China. And also for this stacked scatter plot, the CO2 MTPC is 166 and CO2 KT is overall CO2 KT is 204 lakh. So if we expand this stacked bar, we can see the countries with the highest emission. Like from this chart, it is clear that the countries with the highest emission is just like United States, North America, China are the most countries with highest emission over all the years. Moving forward with the other graphs, we can see that this one shows the field map. If we put the cursor on each country, like we can see Ethiopia, and it shows the CO2 KT of that country. And the next map is the dual map for CO2 MTPC and CO2 KT over years. Like it shows the emission of CO2 in metric ton per capita and the kiloton in each year. Like if we put the cursor on any point, we can see that in this point, the year is 1971, the CO2 KT, the kiloton emission of CO2 is 15 lakh. And if we put the cursor here, like in the year of 1969, the CO2 MTPC rate is 3.875 all over the country. Moving forward with our last chart, that is the side-by-side graph for the countries based on the income versus CO2 emission. For this graph, with our major focus is the countries with their income level. That is the one which we have deleted or cleansed during our first dashboard. Like here we have selected the countries with their income, like East Asian Pacific excluding high income. There are countries with high income, low and middle income, low income, lower middle income, upper middle income, etc. So if we put the cursor on any of these lines, we can see that like this line shows the countries with high income in the year of 1994. The CO2 MTPC of such countries in the year 1994 is 11.48. Also, we have given the filters to such this graph. Like if we want to see the emission of CO2 for any particular country, like countries with middle income, we can select that so that we can see that the graph has changed accordingly. So if we put the cursor here, like here, the countries with middle income in the year of 1986 has an average emission of 2.92 metric ton per capita of CO2. So finally, if we expand this side-by-side graph for countries based on the income versus CO2 emission, we can see that the Europe and Central Asia, excluding high income, have the highest rate of CO2 emission metric per ton per capita all the years, and it was followed by the countries with high income. So this is all about our major findings from this dataset. The next part of this exercise will be taken by Neha. Thank you.
Hello, Professor. Here I am going to present the exercise for task 3, in which I already have two dashboards. For that, I need to check whether it is perfectly designed or not in a formatting base. So first I check the headings name. I changed the heading name to country based CO2 emission from country based CO2 emission visualization part 1. I also changed the color of the text from orange to white for all the maps. Other things, I changed the background of the all text, that is black, and I changed it to gray. I also changed the stack bar capital letters. It's firstly in small letters. I changed it to capital letters. I put all maps to borders, which is looking very nice, and also changed the height of the scatter plot from 348 to 356. I changed the Y position and height of a country name. So this much changes I did in a dashboard part 1, and for the dashboard part 2 I put title for this country based CO2 emission visualization part 2, which is not firstly written. I changed the background from black to white to all the text, all the text boxes, and I changed the color of all the maps, such as scatter plot and all the things, from orange to white. Also changed the position of all the maps, which is not perfectly positions, and also put the borders for all the maps. I write here field map for CO2 KT, which is firstly written only field map. I changed the capital letters for this side by side graph for country based on income versus CO2 emission. Also changed the position of this two, country name and this one. Firstly, it was not perfectly positioned. The country name box is also in this position, and the graph is not perfectly uh, perfectly looked. So this much thing I did in exercise task 3.
And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you.